Local news. Egyptian expatriates vote in presidential elections. Egyptian expatriates have started voting in the first presidential elections since an uprising forced Hosni Mubarak to step down last year. But electoral official says fewer than 600,000 of the nearly 10 million Egyptians abroad have registered. Many failed to do so because of difficulties in obtaining new identity cards, which are required to vote. Voters in Egypt will go to the polls on 23rd and 24th of May. A runoff will be held in June if no one wins 50% in the votes. On Thursday, two of the front runners took part in the first presidential elections debate live on Egyptian TV. Millions watched the head-to-head between Amr Moussa, the former head of the Arab League, and the moderate Islamist Abdelmenam Abou Futuh.
Egypt presidential election candidates in first TV debate. Mr. Moussa attacked the record of his rival as a former leading member of the Muslim Brotherhood, while Mr. Abou Futuh accused the former foreign minister of being a remnant of an oppressive and corrupt regime. There is a rule that says the one who created the problem cannot solve it, Mr. Abou Futuh said. The regime that fell with Moussa outside of it. Mr. Moussa replied, I say, you too were silent. You used to defend the possessions of the Muslim Brotherhood and not Egyptian interests. The two are among 13 candidates. The other front-runners are Mohammed Morsi, the chairman of the Muslim Brotherhood, Freedom and Justice Party (FGP), and Ahmed Shafiq, a former Air Force chief who served as Prime Minister in the last days of Mr. Mubarak's rule.
International news. French President-elect François Hollande is to start work on forming a new government, after telling supporters his victory gave hope of an end austerity. Mr. Hollande has vowed to rework a deal government debate in Eurozone member countries to focus on promoting growth. The socialist leader won just under 52% of votes in Sunday's runoff election. Center-right incumbent Nicolas Sarkozy is the first French president since 1981 not to win a second term. He will hand power to Mr. Hollande on 15th of May, following talks between the two camps.
Why Netanyahu is calling an early Israel election? Benjamin Netanyahu has almost as many enemies as he has friends, and his often oppressive style of leadership is not to everyone's taste. However, Israel's Prime Minister must be credited with leading one of the country's most stable governments of recent times. Israelis are notoriously fickle about their political leaders, and the electoral system has evolved to create unstable, unnatural political coalitions rather than robust single-party rule. Ministerial resignations are not uncommon, nor is it rare to see fragile political agreements collapse after a couple of years. But not since the 2009 general election when Mr. Netanyahu as leader of Likud, the second largest party in 120-seat parliament or Knesset, but together a right-wing coalition which, up until his week, looked strong, focused, and relatively popular.
Fashion news. Anadolu Russo designs playful accessories for H&M after its recent team-ups with big-name local name, including Marni and Versace. H&M is taking a different direction with its latest collaboration by joining forces with global style icon Anadolu Russo. The fashion director at large and creative consultant for Vogue Japan is a Fashion Week favorite, regularly appearing to a best-dressed list thanks for her extravagant choices. Her H&M accessories line will hit some 140 stores worldwide and online October 4, comprising jewelry, sunglasses, shoes, bags, and jewelry.
Sports news. Egypt football ban sparks deadly clashes in Port Said. After overnight violence, new clashes erupted on Saturday between fans of the El Masri club and the security forces. El Masri, one of Egypt's top teams, has been banned for 2 years over violence at its stadium in February, in which at least 74 people died. A criminal investigation into the incident is continuing. The suspension of El Masri means the team will not compete in competition until the end of 2030, dozens injured. Hundreds of angry El Masri fans took to the streets of Port Said on Friday evening to protest against the ruling. Troops fired into the air to try to disperse the crowds. The official El Ahram newspaper said a 13-year-old boy died in hospital after being shot in the back and dozens of people were injured as the army tried to prevent protesters from reaching the Suez Canal. Reuters news agents quoted a medical source as saying that 2 more people were being treated for gunshot wounds. Clashes broke out again on Saturday as protesters hurled stones at the security forces. In return, they lobbed tear gas and fired bullets into the air, witnesses said. Thank you, and that was for today.